So it's August. That means that we're going to jump into our Faith in Film series. Over the next several weeks, we're actually going to be exploring some really extraordinary films. Very, very different. Every single one of these films is very, very different. We started off last night with watching Encanto up here. And so we'll be talking about that one today. But next week, we're doing No Impact Man. Anybody seen that one? No Impact Man? No one has seen it. I hadn't heard of it either, but then somebody recommended. Basically, it's the decision of a person living in New York City to try to live an entire year without any negative impact on the environment. And so what does that look like? How in the world would we do that? So that'll be next week. And then after that, we'll be doing In the Heights, which is a fantastic musical and movie. After that, we'll be doing Coda, which is actually the best picture of the year this past year. So all of those will be in discussion format. In just a moment, the Aguilar family is going to come up and help me evaluate and explore Encanto. But we're going to start off with seeing the trailer each time. So this is Encanto. All right, as the Aguilar family comes up, I want to just kind of give you, there's an assumption that we bring to this series, to our Faith in Film series. The assumption is that if we would look, if we would pause, God can be found anywhere. That God can be found in a neighbor, in a friend, in an enemy, can be found in a novel, can be found in a piece of art, and can be found in a film. If we look and we listen, God is always speaking to us. All right? So we've got our group up here. These are resident experts that we have brought in on Encanto. Last night was my second time of seeing Encanto, and it was probably, what was it, like maybe your third time of seeing Encanto?
Emilio, how many times did you tell me that you saw it?
At least 60.
60 times.
Yesterday he told me it was a billion.
101.
Billion times. All right, so we're introduced to this family, the Madrigal family. And they live in kind of a secluded community in the mountains of Colombia. And they live in this really special house, this Encanto. So that's my first question that I have for you guys. What does Encanto mean? Raise your hand.
It means enchanted.
Enchanted. Can everybody hear them? You can? Okay, good. All right, so anything else? And it's enchanted. What else does Encanto mean?
It's like a safe place for them where they can't be harmed.
Okay, so it's a safe place. Did you have something, Amelia?
It's like magical.
Yeah, it's a magical house. So tell me really quickly, like, how exactly is the house magic? How do we know that it's magic?
It's magic because when it's trying to talk to them, it uses its like doors and windows to say yes or no.
Yeah, you saw that in the preview, right? So the house will actually use like its shutters and its stairs and all this stuff to kind of communicate, right?
Or like during Antonio's party when he got his gift, the house moved its the hat racks so that like it would give a hat its rack and move it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Before it happened, the kids were trying to sneak up the stairs, but it would turn into like a slide, and they would keep on going up and down. It stopped it from going up.
Yeah. Before Antonio was going to receive his gift.
It was kind of like a water slide.
That's very true. Is your house like that?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So
wish.
Yeah, we all do, I think. So one of the things that the house offers, the Encanto offers, is it gives a gift to all of the children. So what was Luisa's gift?
Like super strength or like infinite strength?
Yeah. So Luisa had super strength, but sometimes there's always a burden to having a strength, right? And she felt like everybody always counted on her, and that was really exhausting, right? Okay, so Isabella, what is Isabella? Can you tell me Isabella's strength?
Isabella's strength was to make beautiful flowers, but she found out she could also make cactuses.
She could. You're absolutely right. She brought beauty wherever she went, right? But it was really hard on Isabella. What was the burden that Isabella carried? Do you remember?
No.
What was difficult about Isabella's gift?
That she always had to be perfect, but
Yes.
she didn't always have to be perfect.
You're right. She felt like she always had to be perfect. So what about Bruno's gift?
We don't talk about Bruno.
Shh. You're not supposed to talk. Why are we not supposed to talk about? That's actually something in the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, shh, you're not supposed to talk about Bruno. Why are we not supposed to talk about Bruno, Alina?
We're not supposed to talk about Bruno, apparently, because his gift apparently wasn't helping the family. So he left, and they thought that he was not good. So they don't like to talk about him.
Yeah, because they thought that his gift was bad. They just decided to not talk about Bruno, right? But that's one of the things, it's kind of one of the messages of the movie is that families need to talk about hard stuff. You can choose to kind of shuffle it underneath the rug, but in the end, it's going to come back and kind of bite you, right? And so families have to learn and gain tools about how to talk about hard stuff. So that brings us to Mirabel. Now, what was Mirabel's gift?
Her gift?
What was her gift? Did she get a gift?
It looked like she didn't, but in real life, she already had her gift, and it was to put the family together in their worst moment. She thought she didn't have a gift.
Yeah, she thought she didn't have a gift,
She
and actually,
was sad. She was focused on getting a gift, but instead, she already had a gift.
yeah. See, she was very sad, and a good bit of the movie is about her trying to find her gift, right?
Yeah.
And trying to understand what it might be, and maybe even looking at other people and
They
saying,
even
gosh,
have a song.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And she looks at other people and she says, gosh, I wish I had their gift, right? Have you ever had that feeling where you looked at maybe your brother or sister or a friend and you thought, gosh, I wish I had their gift. I wish I was talented like they are talented. Have you ever felt that way?
Nope, I don't think so.
You've never thought that? Wow, you are the first person I've ever asked that question. Sorry, I don't relate to that.
I'm not really sure that that's true. You've never wanted something that your brother or sister has had that you haven't had.
Wait a minute.
You wanted my computer, you have one. Oh.
So sometimes it's things, right? Sometimes it's things, and then other times it's talents.
Like maybe if your brother or sister come in first place and you don't, do you ever feel sad about that?
We don't talk about that.
we don't talk
Quiet.
about that.
Or if your brother and sister's art gets picked to be hung up, but your art doesn't get picked up, do you ever feel upset about that?
That happened this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that happens frequently.
All right, so that does happen from time to time. So at the climax of the movie, when everything is kind of coming and rising to the very, very end, the house, the casita, this beautiful casita in the back, the Encanto, it starts crumbling. There's cracks, and they don't really know why, and they think that the magic is going away, that they're losing their magic. And especially the grandmother, Alma, she really thinks that she has to like control it. She has to try to make sure that the magic doesn't get away and hold on to the past. But Mirabel tells her, or actually teaches her a lesson. What is the main lesson that you feel like that Encanto teaches us? What do you guys think? Somebody have a lesson, a main lesson?
That like you might not think like you're good at doing something. I don't know what, but you might not think you're good at doing something, but like everyone else around you is super good, but you just might be like better like in a different way or in a different thing.
There we go. I like that. Really good. Amelia.
I think the gift can be that that your gift doesn't have to be completely obvious, but everyone has a special talent and ability.
That's great, Alina. You have something, Lucia? A main thing that you think the movie was about? Thinking face.
Everybody is special, even if they don't have their own gift. You don't have to, like, as soon as you open your eyes, you know that you need to do what your gift was like, what your gift was. You don't have to do that. You just have to use it when, like, you're special even without a gift.
Yeah.
When the town came together, they said, we have no gift, but we are many. So there were a lot of them to help, but they had no gifts, but they could help even if they had no sing, because they're all special in their own way.
Yeah. You guys did great. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. You guys are wonderful. Our children are an extraordinary gift to us, and we love it when we can hear their voices. So there's 3 things that I want to share with you guys this morning. I want us to kind of back away for just a moment. I want you to look at the film kind of through spiritual eyes, trying to find God, trying to listen for the lessons and the themes, kind of the things that are beneath the surface of this movie Encanto. How does God show up in this movie? There's 3 different things that I want to point to this morning that I feel like are pretty kind of heavy even messages. The first lesson from Encanto is about how we receive value in life. You might even think back on your own life and the people that kind of dispensed value, told you about your value. And we're asked the question, like, this movie asks the question, like, who gets to do that? Who gets to tell us about our own value? Who gets to dispense value and say your higher value or your lower value? Is it because of our gifts? Is it because of our talents or our accomplishments or our address? What is it exactly that tells us about our value in life? I think that's an incredible theme that's offered to us. Grandma Alma is really the matriarch of the family. And she, at the end of the movie, she sings a song that kind of answers this question, because she, for the longest time, she thought the magic was about the house and it was about the gifts specifically. And then she realizes something. She sings this song. She says, "The miracle is not some magic that you've got." She's speaking to her grandkids and her kids. "It's not some magic that you got. The miracle is you. It's not some gift, just you. The miracle is you, all of you, all of you." This is a simple and yet such a profound message that we find here in the movie, that we find in the scriptures, that the miracle is us. There's something miraculous in each and every one of us that's not about what we can do. It's not about what we can accomplish. It's not about climbing a ladder. It's not about living in a particular place or arriving in some professional position. I mean, there's nothing wrong necessarily with those things, but that can't be our value. That can't determine our value. One of the things that we try to communicate in our children's programs, and I hope it's to our adults too, that you are miraculous. That just because of who you are extraordinary. And we hear that in the scriptures. If you would, go to that first passage in Psalm 139. "For you, God, created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." You might have learned that back in Sunday school. It's one of those foundational messages. Where does our value come from? No, we're actually, each and every one of us, the psalmist is trying to grasp at words to try to understand that we have actually been formed by God. That each and every one of us have fingerprints on us of the Creator in some mysterious way. that we're all miraculous, fearfully and wonderfully made. I think about the passage, one of my favorite passages from 1 John chapter 3, that says, "See what great love the Father has lavished over us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are." See, do you see? I like how that verse starts off. Do you see it? Do you see yourself the way that God sees you? Or does your value depend on all of these other changing measurements? No, see yourself the way that I see you, God says to us. God encourages us. One of my mentors in ministry, he would always work into every single sermon this statement. He would always say, he would look at everyone. He would be like, you are a child of God. You are loved completely. You always have been and you always will be. It's like a warm blanket if we would receive that each day, that we are miraculous. God sees us and encourages us, calls us to see each other, helps us to see each other. It was about, what do you think, 8 or 9 months ago when we first got in contact, Amanda? I think it's probably October, November? Okay, so we first started kind of conversing, and then we had our first interviews in January. And then we of course, met face-to-face after that. But one of the things that Amanda talked to us about very early on in her interview was that she grew up in a tradition that when they looked at her, they saw a limitation because of her gender. That she was only able to play certain roles and do certain things because of her gender, because she was a woman. But when we looked at her, when we first saw Amanda on the Zoom call, and then later on, especially when she came here, we saw just an extraordinary human being. And sure, like, she was talented, and yes, she's smart, and yes, she brings a lot of gifts, but we like connected with something, and I think it's partially because the Spirit was kind of leading us to. But we saw in her something extraordinary. And you know what? I think that she saw the same thing in us. She actually interviewed with big churches and prestigious churches, but she felt God leading her here, she and Chris both. At the end of her first interview, she said this, and I'll never forget it. She said, do you know what next steps are? Because we've been learning about you, and we've been watching sermons, and we've been looking at your website, and we've been getting to know you for a while. And she said, we already love you, and we want to know if you love us too. So Amanda's story connects us to the second lesson. And that is, Encanto teaches us, I can only see me in light of we. You can only see you in light of us. Essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that if we're trying to know who we are, if we're trying to really get a sense of who we are, then we can't really do that in isolation. We can only know us in light of me and you, in light of us, in light of we. I feel like sometimes our culture just pulls this bait and switch on us, convincing us that independence is the goal. Extreme independence. You don't need to need anyone. And when you arrive at that place, when you don't need anyone, then you've won for some reason. And I feel like what you've won in the end, if you're just completely independent, let's say you buy an island or so, I don't know, whatever it is, and I think you've achieved aloneness is what you've achieved. I think God created us to only understand ourselves, to know our value, to know our purpose, to know what life is really all about when we find ourselves in the we, when we find ourselves in loving community. 1 Corinthians says this, just as a body Though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized into one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jew or Gentile, slave or free, and we were given one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Right after this passage, Paul goes into this interesting kind of back and forth between a hand and a foot. Like there's a dialogue that happens between a hand and a foot, and they're arguing over which one's more important. Like, no, you wouldn't be able to do anything if you didn't have me. No, you wouldn't be able to go anywhere if you. I mean, it's kind of like this silliness of yeah, like you're right. It is silly for a hand and a foot to be in an argument. But sometimes we get all kind of caught up in our own gifts and looking at other people and it's all cleared up there in verse 18. But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as God wanted them to be. We can only understand me in light of we. God has shaped us and crafted us and blessed us to play our role in a much bigger picture, in a much bigger community. We need each other. I need you. And I think that you need me. We need each other. The final lesson is about the power of we. At the end of the movie, the whole family is reconciled, right? So Mirabel kind of leads them to kind of understand some things about themselves, and they are reconciled together. And then, but they stand. Go to that next slide. They stand. That's what's left of their casita. That's what's left of their Encanto. The thing that they thought was their magic. And so they all sit there in front of what was left of their Encanto, and they think, well, how are we supposed to be now? How are we supposed to rebuild this? And then they start thinking, well, should we try to rebuild what was before? Or should we instead try to build something different? It's almost as though they were asking the question, how do we build something better, something kinder, something more wise and more reconciled? I think the question that we might find for our context right now as we look around at the world, and we've lost a lot of things over these last few years, we might ask ourselves the question, should we aspire to build what we had before, or should we build something brand new? After this scene right here, they start hearing singing. And then it comes closer and it comes closer and closer. And it's the community, it's the entire community that is coming out. And they all together, they all aspire and agree that they're going to build the house together. The whole community, the family, everybody. And that was the power of we. I'm experiencing that power of we right now in the Be the Bridge group. Some of you guys are aware that we're in partnership with a wonderful African-American congregation down in Humble. We've been in friendship with them for about a year. And we just met with them again this last Thursday. And I feel like we've been called together. We've been called together to build something that we could never build on our own. But together, there's some really extraordinary things happening. And that's the power of we. I hope that you might check that out sometime. Join us every second Thursday at 6:30 and see about the power that we're experiencing, the miracle that we're experiencing together. Let's come to the communion table.
my favorite part of the movie was when Mirabel confronts her abuela. Says, Grandma, you're the problem. Why? Because she was a slave to her fear. And aren't we all? But today we sang that we are no longer slaves to fear, and that's why we come to the table, because every time we break this bread, we pass it around, we proclaim that we are the children of God, and that is what can break our fear. I invite you today to take the bread and the cup from our little portable communion cups and say throughout the week, every time you partake of any meal, we are no longer slaves to fear. We are the children of God. Jose?
Let's bow our head for a quick prayer. Dear God, thank you for your love and opportunity for redemption along each step of our journeys. Help us to recognize the wholesomeness in ourselves and extend the grace you've shown us to ourselves and others. We ask that your sacrifice and love remain visible through our relationships wherever we may be. We ask in Jesus' name.